This is Lorena Mora-Mowry para Mujeres Latina Today. We're here at the Ohio State University and a conference that is uniting all the Latinas, Hispanic women of the United States that like to write, empowerment. So we have the pleasure to interview one in particular, famous and very talented and inspired woman for our community, that we are here in Ohio. Please share your name, where you work, and how you feel to be part here in Ohio today.
I'm Rusty Barceló. That's my given name. However, my legal name is Nancy, but I prefer Rusty. That's how I identify. Mm-hmm. I'm actually a Chicana with roots from Mexico, and I'm president of Northern New Mexico College, which is a small four-year institution in Española y El Rito, New Mexico, Nuevo Mexico.
Tell us about your journey, because we have all a story, and we are storytellers. We have to share a story in order to inspire or to think about our future, how we can make it better, because you'll be building the road for all of us for
Thank
years.
You. Well, actually, I'm the first in my family, probably out of several hundred cousins, to go to college. That was never on my radar screen to do this. But I did go to college. I did my undergraduate work at Chico State in California. And I went to the University of Iowa to do my graduate work. So I was in the Midwest for over 30 years at the University of Iowa and the University of Minnesota. I left Minnesota as the vice president for equity and diversity. In fact, when I got to the University of Iowa, I was the first Chicana to pursue a doctorate degree at that institution. I was alone. There was a Chicano from Chicago there, and a Native American woman, Ruth Puchetaniqua, who represented the Meskwaki people. The three of us came together to form an organization. I went to Iowa to become a social worker. But because there were so few of us, and I immediately sensed that there was some cultural isolation in terms of my culture and my identity, I called my mother. I've told this story many times. I called my mother that I would be dropping out of school because it was too cold in Iowa. And my mother said, Rusty, where there is one Mexican, there's probably another one. Mm-hmm. And she sent me a care package with some pan dulce, food, a cultural icon, the Virgen de Guadalupe, which I still wear around my neck. No, what was my mother trying to tell me? I went to the library and I was thinking about this, and I gravitated to the census data, and I was amazed to learn that in 1970, there were over 30,000 Mexicanos, Spanish-speaking people in the state of Iowa, in a state with less than 2 million people. I learned that just 15 miles from the university was a small town called West Liberty, Iowa, that had a significant Spanish-speaking population. I learned that in 1898, the first Mexican-American community established in Iowa was in Fort Madison, Iowa, 90 miles south. I then had to ask myself, if there were so many of us in the state of Iowa, why was I the only one at the University of Iowa? Mm-hmm. And when I asked that question of the vice president for student services, he gave me a job right then and there to start recruiting. And so when I took up the task to recruit, that changed the direction of my career. I began pursuing education and realized that I would stay in academia to enhance the participation of Latinos, Native American people, as well as other disenfranchised groups. And I've not regretted it for a moment. Never in my life did I ever aspire to be a president. In fact, I'm not even sure I still want to be a president. But you want to make sure, but when those opportunities or those challenges present themselves, you have to step in, because quite frankly, a lot of people made it possible for me to be where I am in the Latino community.
Rusty, you talk about, you started the road, knocking the door. Tell me about the biggest challenge that you have faced, and you say, I did it.
Well, I don't know that I ever say I did it as much as I say we did it. Because I am where I am because a community came together and pushed me forward. Raised questions with the University of Iowa, for example, like, we want Rusty to be considered for this position, or supported my journey. But MALCS, the organization that we are here at this conference today, is a very critical organization. It's an organization that's dedicated to advancing the scholarship of Latinas, Chicanas, and Indigenous women. And it provides support to make sure that we join the academy as professors, as graduate students, etc. And that support group, because so often familia is really important to us as Latinos, no? But the fact of the matter is my blood family is in California and Arizona. So we create community wherever we are. In fact, the great writer Gloria Anzaldúa always would say, I'm like a turtle, I carry home on my back. And we do carry home on our back. So we create community. And I think the Midwest provides us with an important opportunity. You know, in California, the cultural signs were all around me. San Francisco, San Jose, you know, the Mexican grocery store, my grandmother, everybody's speaking Spanish there. You come to a place like in Iowa, where you're the only one, it makes you look at your identity really differently. It almost makes you stronger, and you need it. I needed it when I would go to work, for example, every morning when I was in Iowa and Minnesota, I would listen to Mexican music, just so I would feel strong, because I knew that as soon as I got out of the car, that world was no longer that. And so it was for my own nourishment, no? And so you get in touch with your culture and your identity in ways that I probably wouldn't have had I stayed in California, where I took it all for granted.
When we talk about your being successful, tell us about us as a Latinas. Where now from compared to 30 years ago, the Hispanic woman? Do you think any changes we are?
Well, yes, absolutely. There's more of us that have degrees. But the thing that I worry about, there's more of us, but the thing, we don't want to assimilate. We want to be part of the society without losing our individual group identities. It's important that you continue to be Venezuelan. Okay? No? Mm-hmm. But you're part of a larger group of Latinas. But it's important to be who you are. In the same way, I'm not from Mexico. I was born in the United States. My grandmother would argue I was born in occupied Mexico. Okay? She said that. She always said that. But the reality is I didn't have her experience. So I didn't identify the way she did with her Mexican roots, okay? However, she instilled in me an appreciation for those roots and to never forget who I was in terms of where I came from. And that was very important. My father had a GED. He served 20 years in the Air Force. Mm-hmm. My mother went as far as the sophomore, the 10th grade. And it's not that they weren't smart. My parents were brilliant. I believe I'm where I am because they instilled in me some very important values that contributes to who I am. And I think some of the finest lessons I ever learned was from them.
We're here, a lot of Hispanas and a lot of Latinas, a lot of Mexican American. We are in one voice. Can you share a message to the community on one voice? And I wanted to see when you arrive and what you have learned so far about this conference, and then what are you taking with you in your pocket, in your memory?
Well, first of all, I didn't completely answer your other question. Okay. I think a lot has changed. There's more of us at Ohio State than there was even 10 years ago. Yeah. Okay, I see it. The Multicultural Center, what Yolanda Cepeda's doing, etc. There's been some growth. It's not where it needs to be. I think 3% of Ohio State are Latino students. It needs to be more. But 10 years ago, it was probably 2% or 1%. So there's steady growth, and we're going to see more of us, okay? And so when I come to an institution, like I spoke here probably 8 years ago, I can't remember when. I think there were 2 Latinas listening to my speech. I mean, there was a lot of people here, and it was all about diversity, etc. And what I see at this conference, and what is wonderful, we have some strong women coming up the pipeline. I'm getting close to the time when I'm going to be stepping back. And so I want to make sure that there's people who are going to follow me and carry on the work in their way, in their generation, because the way I did it will be different. They're going to have stronger support than I had. Okay, so they're going to be better positioned in some ways. But and I think this conference keeps us all sort of on track. And I think that it's an important thing to be happening in Ohio. I think it explains to the administration, they were there in the opening ceremony, that we are here, right? That's what the theme is, right? But estamos aquí. We are here, and we're not going away. I think that's a myth. We're not temporary. This is forever. And I think institutions like Ohio State need to pay attention to that, need to rethink how do we meet the needs of the Latino community in the state of Ohio? How do we meet the needs across the country for that matter? Because if we are the fastest growing population, that needs to be attended to. Because we're going to be scientists, we're going to be politicians, we're going to be doctors, we're going to be lawyers, and these women here represent all those fields, and they are amazing women. So I go away with a level of satisfaction that maybe we've done some good work that helped blaze the trail for them to make it a little easier. That doesn't mean they don't have challenges. Some of the challenges that still exist is racism. Racism is still there. Sexism is alive and well. So all of those things are still things that we have to pay attention to. We're still not paid the same as women. I'm sorry, we are not. And yet, I think, we just have to keep working at it. But the point is, though, there's more of us in professional positions. Look what you all are doing. This is amazing. This would not have been happening. It would have been a man interviewing me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have to pay attention to these things. I'm a feminist, okay? But my father told me I was a feminist when I was 4 years old, too, He said they didn't know you. But I think that this is, and it's what I've dedicated my life to.
When you, and I'm so happy that I was able to interview you, because we have to definitely, the experience of us is unique. But at the end, if we put all these experiences together, we are stronger. And I feel this empowerment, and trust me, it's part of our life to keep working together. But if you define us, if we can send a message in 3 words about what the Hispanic woman is today to our community, so they can remember our definition. We are
significant contributors to society. I want them not to just think about us in terms of speaking Spanish and all of us cooking tamales. We know that each of our cultures have different foods, okay? That we are more complex, and we bring all of our diversity to these discussions, okay? We do. We bring it all. In that sense, we're not one. We are a kaleidoscope of many people with many ideas that create a wholeness. And I think sometimes that gets forgotten. And so when I think about, we have always had voice. We have always had voice, especially Latinas. We have always been strong in our families that have allowed us to survive, have allowed us to get over the difficult times, holding us together. And I think that's a strength that runs across the board. And sometimes that fact gets lost, because so often they still position us as sort of a very, as cooks, as, only within and that's important. Don't misunderstand me. I mean, I can't cook them. But the fact of the matter is, we are doing some incredible things.
What we have to be, what we have to fear the most at this moment.
I think it differs for each group. For example, you immigrated to this country. I did not. But I was raised not to be proud of who I am. I once asked my niece Melissa, "Why do you call yourself a Hispanic?" She said, "Aunt Rusty, who wants to be a Mexican?" Because of all the negative stereotypes that she has heard. And so sometimes when you...
The fear of being ourselves.
Or to be embarrassed because society has told you it's not okay to be who you are. And I would guess sometimes you might get upset when people automatically assume you're Mexicano. But sometimes that happens because they stereotype us. And I think our largest fear is sometimes to speak out. Thank you. I hope it was okay.